The massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers opened with a sound like thunder. Commander Lee Hanna walked through them with her head held high. Her military boots clicked against the polished floor as she moved toward the center of the room. Around her, 12 different alien species sat in their judgment seats, looking down at her like she was some kind of dangerous animal. The chamber was huge. The ceiling stretched up so high that Hanna could barely see the top. Strange lights floated in the air, casting shadows that moved and danced. The air smelled of ozone and something sweet that made her nose wrinkle. She had been in this room before, but never as a prisoner. Council Speaker Cale Nix rose from his seat. He was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the floating lights. His forearms moved gracefully as he spoke, and his voice carried easily through the vast space. "Commander Lee Hanna of the Terran Defense Force," he began, his words cold and formal. "You stand accused of refusing direct orders from this council. You have been found guilty of obstruction of galactic peace." Hanna said nothing. She kept her eyes focused on the speaker, refusing to look away. Behind her, she could hear Captain Kim Do-yoon shifting in his seat. He was the only other human in the chamber, sent by Earth to speak for her, but they both knew his words would not matter now. The human colonies on Kepler 442b, Gliese 667c, and Proxima Centauri b were ordered to surrender to the Vorthak Empire. The speaker continued. This was decided by majority vote of this council. The decision was made to prevent greater bloodshed across the galaxy. Hanna finally spoke, her voice clear and strong. Those colonies are home to over 2 million humans. Men, women, and children who have lived there for generations. They built those worlds with their own hands. The speaker's large black eyes seemed to glow. The Vorthak Empire is expanding. They cannot be stopped. Surrender would have meant relocation. Your refusal has led to war. My refusal led to freedom, Hanna replied. Those people chose to fight rather than abandon their homes. I helped them make that choice, a murmur went through the chamber. Some of the alien delegates moved restlessly in their seats. The Zelkari representative, a creature that looked like a cross between a bird and a lizard, clicked its beak in what Hanna knew was disapproval. The Vorthak delegate, a massive creature covered in thick armor plates, remained perfectly still. Captain Kim Do-hyun stood up from his place in the observer section. Council Speaker, Commander Hanna was following the most basic principle of military service. She protected civilians under her command. She disobeyed. Direct orders from this council, the speaker replied without looking at Kim. She encouraged resistance that has now cost thousands of lives across multiple systems. Hanna felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. The lives lost were fighting for their freedom. The Vorthak Empire has destroyed 17 civilizations in the past 50 years. They do not relocate populations. They eliminate them. That is speculation, said the Vorthak delegate, speaking for the first time. Its voice sounded like gravel being crushed. The Empire offers order and peace to all who accept it. The Empire offers death, Hanna shot back. Ask the Centauri Republic. Ask the free worlds of Titan. Oh wait, you cannot. They are all gone. The chamber fell silent. Even the floating light seemed to dim. The speaker raised one of his four hands and the silence deepened. Commander Hanna, he said slowly, your words prove that you remain unrepentant. You show no remorse for your actions. You continue to promote resistance to lawful authority. Hanna straightened her shoulders. I show no remorse for protecting innocent people. I show no remorse for standing against genocide. If that makes me guilty, then I accept that guilt. The speaker nodded as if he had expected this answer. Then you leave us no choice. The sentence has already been decided. He gestured to a floating screen that appeared in the center of the chamber. On it was an image that made several of the alien delegates look away. It showed a planet covered in red clouds with a surface that seemed to move and writhe like something alive. Kelara Prime, the speaker announced. A world where no intelligent being has survived longer than 3 standard days. The atmosphere is toxic. The wildlife is hostile beyond measure. The planet itself seems designed to kill any form of life that tries to establish itself there. Captain Kim shot to his feet. You cannot be serious. That is not justice. That is murder. It is exile, the speaker corrected. Commander Hanna will be given basic survival equipment and transported to the surface. If she survives, she is free to remain there for the rest of her natural life. If she does not, he shrugged with all 4 shoulders, then the galaxy will be safer without her influence. Hana looked at the image of the red planet and felt something she had not expected. Not fear, but curiosity. How many have been sent there before me? 7 beings over the past 2 centuries, the speaker replied. Warriors from 6 different species, all considered among the finest fighters their races had ever produced. And none survived? None? Hana nodded slowly. Then I will be the first. The speaker's expression did not change, but something flickered in his large black eyes. Surprise, maybe? Or concern. The sentence is passed, he said formally. Transport will begin immediately. As the guards moved forward to escort her out, Hana turned to look at Captain Kim. Their eyes met across the chamber, and she saw the pain there. But she also saw something else. Faith. He believed she could do this impossible thing. Take care of the colonies while I am gone, she said to him, loud enough for the entire chamber to hear. How long should we wait for you? He called back. Hana smiled, the first genuine smile she had worn since entering the chamber. Give me a year, maybe 2. I want to see what this Deathworld has to teach me. The guards led her toward the exit, but her footsteps remained steady and strong. Behind her, she could hear excited chatter from the alien delegates. They were already discussing her as if she were dead. They would learn differently soon enough. The transport ship was waiting in the docking bay, its pilot a nervous-looking Zelkari who kept apologizing as he loaded her survival pod. His name was Vex Tullen, and he seemed genuinely sorry about what was happening. I have transported many beings to difficult places, he said, his beak clicking with anxiety. But never to Kalara Prime, the planet. It is not natural. Something is wrong with it. Wrong how? Hana asked as she checked her equipment one final time. The wildlife there, it learns, it adapts. It seems to enjoy killing. He shuddered, his feathers ruffling. I will pray to my ancestors for your spirit. Save your prayers, Hana replied, settling into the pod's pilot seat. I plan to come back alive. As the ship began its journey toward the red planet, Hana stared out at the stars and thought about home. Earth was many light years away, but the colonies she had tried to protect were closer. They were still fighting, still resisting. She would survive this exile. She would learn everything that Deathworld had to teach her. And then she would return to show the galaxy that humans did not break easily. The red planet grew larger in the view screen, its surface swirling with storms that looked like blood. Somewhere down there, death was waiting for her. Hana smiled again. Death would have to wait a little longer. The survival pod shook violently as it entered Kalara Prime's atmosphere. Through the small window, Hana could see red clouds swirling around her like angry spirits. The pod's heat shields glowed white-hot and warning lights flashed all around her. The air outside was thick with particles that looked like ash but moved like they were alive. Her pod crashed through what looked like a forest canopy, but the trees were wrong. They were made of some kind of crystal that rang like bells when her pod smashed through them. The sound was beautiful and terrible at the same time. When she finally hit the ground, the impact threw her against her safety harness so hard that she saw stars. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then the trees began to scream. The sound was unlike anything Hana had ever heard. It was high and sharp, like metal being torn apart but somehow organic. She realized that the crystal trees were alive and her crash had hurt them. The screaming grew louder and she could see other shapes moving in the forest around her. Hana quickly checked her equipment. The survival pack contained basic medical supplies, a water purifier, emergency food for 1 week, a plasma cutter, and a small shelter generator. Not much to survive on a world that killed everything that tried to live there. She activated the pod's scanner and immediately wished she had not. The readings showed that the air was breathable, but full of toxins that would slowly poison her over time. The ground registered as unstable, shifting constantly like it was alive, and there were life forms moving toward her location. Big ones. The first creature she saw made her understand why no one survived on this world. It came through the crystal trees like a nightmare made real. The thing was the size of an earth rhino, but moved on 6 legs that ended in claws as long as her arm. Its head was covered in compound eyes that reflected the red light filtering through the crystal canopy. Intelligence gleamed in those eyes, and Hana realized with a chill that this thing was not just hungry. It was curious about her. She grabbed her plasma cutter and rolled out of the pod just as the creature reached it. The thing sniffed at the metal hull, then looked directly at her. For a moment, they stared at each other. Then it opened its mouth and let out a sound that was part roar and part laughter. More shapes moved in the forest. She was not dealing with one creature, but a pack of them. Hana had studied pack hunters on Earth, and she knew that the smart ones would try to surround her. She needed to move. Fast. The plasma cutter hummed to life in her hands as she backed toward a cluster of the largest crystal trees. The lead creature tilted its head, watching her movements with obvious interest. When she raised her weapon, it made that laughing sound again, as if it found her defiance amusing. The attack came from behind. Another creature had circled around while she focused on the leader. Hana heard its claws scraping against crystal and threw herself sideways just as it pounced. The beast landed where she had been standing, its claws leaving deep gouges in the ground. She fired the plasma cutter without aiming, just trying to create space between herself and the pack. The energy beam sliced through one of the crystal trees, which fell with a sound like 1,000 wind chimes breaking. The creatures backed away, but only for a moment. Hana ran. The forest was a maze of crystal trees, all screaming now from the damage her pod had caused. The sound was overwhelming, making it hard to think clearly. Behind her, she could hear the pack giving chase, their claws clicking against the crystal ground like deadly music. She found a cave system carved into a hill of black rock. The entrance was narrow, too small for the large creatures to follow easily. Hana squeezed inside and kept moving deeper into the darkness until she found a chamber large enough to set up her emergency shelter. Her hands shook as she activated the shelter generator. A small dome of energy formed around her, providing basic protection from the environment. It would keep her alive for now, but it would not last long on its limited power supply. Outside the cave, she could hear the creatures prowling around the entrance. They made soft sounds to each other, almost like they were talking, planning. That thought sent ice through her veins. Most predators gave up when prey found a secure hiding spot. These things seemed to be working out how to get to her. Hana checked her supplies again and did the math. 1 week of food, maybe 2 if she was very careful. Water for 5 days if she could find a way to refill her containers. The shelter generator would last 3 days at most before its power cell died. She was supposed to die here. Everyone expected her to die here. But as she sat in her small dome of light surrounded by darkness and the sounds of intelligent predators, Hana felt something unexpected. Not fear, but determination. She had survived the first day on Kalara Prime. That was already longer than some of the previous exiles had managed. The creatures outside grew quiet as night fell, but Hana knew they were still there, waiting. She used the time to explore deeper into the cave system with her plasma cutter, set to its lowest power setting for light. What she found in the depths changed. Everything. The cave walls were covered in markings. Not natural formations, but actual drawings made by intelligent hands. The images showed creatures that looked like the pack hunters she had encountered, but they were fighting something else. Something that fought back and won. The drawings were old, far older than any of the galactic civilizations she knew. They told a story of war between the planet's native predators and visitors from the stars. But these visitors had not been defeated. In the final images, they stood victorious, holding weapons that looked advanced beyond anything she had seen. At the bottom of one wall, she found symbols that her military training helped her recognize, coordinates, and below them, a message in a script she could not read but somehow understood the meaning of, for those who would not yield. Dr. An Minji's xenobiology lessons from the military academy came back to her. Life finds a way to adapt, she had always said. Evolution never stops, but sometimes evolution needs a push from intelligence and will. Hana stared at the ancient markings and smiled. She was not the first intelligent being to face this challenge. Others had been here before, and they had found a way not just to survive, but to win. The creatures outside made their laughing sounds again, as if they could sense her thoughts. Let them laugh, she decided. She had work to do. She spent the rest of the night studying the cave drawings and planning her next moves. The plasma cutter could be modified into other tools if she was careful. The emergency food could be stretched if she could find local sources of nutrition. And somewhere on this hostile world, there were answers to questions she was only beginning to ask. When morning came, and the red light filtered down into the cave, Hana packed her gear and prepared to leave her temporary shelter. The creatures were still out there, but now she had something she had not possessed before. Hope. She stepped out into the screaming crystal forest with her plasma cutter ready, and her head held high. Kalara Prime wanted to kill her. The pack hunters wanted to eat her. The very air wanted to poison her. But she was human, and humans had been surviving impossible odds since they first looked up at the stars and decided to reach for them. The real test was just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since Hana crashed on Kalara Prime, and she was still alive. This fact seemed to anger the planet itself. Every morning brought new dangers. The crystal trees had learned to be quiet when she approached, no longer screaming warnings to every predator in the area. The pack hunters she had first encountered now avoided her completely, as if something had warned them away. But something else had taken notice of her continued survival. Hana had built a proper shelter in a different cave system, one with multiple exits and a fresh water source. She had learned to eat certain fungi that grew in the deeper caves, bitter but nutritious. Her plasma cutter had been modified into 3 different tools: a weapon, a cutting torch, and a small cooking device. She was adapting, just as humans always did. But adaptation worked both ways on Kalara Prime. The first sign that something big was hunting her came on the 21st day. She found tracks near her shelter that made her blood run cold. The prints were huge, nearly twice the size of the pack hunters, but what scared her was not their size. It was their shape. The tracks showed 4 arms ending in claws, but the spacing between them suggested intelligence. The creature had been examining her shelter, walking around it in a careful pattern like it was studying her defenses. Some of the claw marks on nearby rocks looked almost like writing. Hana had read the reports about previous exiles to Kalara Prime. Captain Song Ji-hoon from Earth had been the 4th exile sent here. Nearly 30 years ago, his ship had crash-landed in the northern continent, and search teams had found only scattered pieces of his equipment. No body was ever recovered. But now Hana began to wonder if there was more to Song's story. She spent 2 days following a trail of old metal fragments that might have come from human equipment. The trail led her across a landscape that changed almost daily. Rivers moved overnight. Hills appeared where valleys had been the day before. The planet itself seemed to shift and change like a living thing. On the 3rd day of tracking, she found it. Hidden in a valley that had not existed on any of her previous maps was the wreckage of a human exploration ship. The hull was cracked open like an egg, but some of the interior compartments were intact. And inside one of them, she found what she had been looking for: Captain Song Ji-hoon's personal log. The device still had power after 3 decades. Built to military standards that could survive almost anything, Hana activated it with shaking hands and heard the voice of a dead man speaking across the years. Day 47 on Kalara Prime. Song's voice was calm despite everything he had been through. I have confirmed my suspicions about this world. It is not natural. The entire planet is some kind of testing ground, designed by an intelligence far beyond anything the Council races have achieved. Hana fast-forwarded through weeks of entries, looking for the information she needed most. Day 91. I have made contact with the apex predator. It calls itself the Alpha, though I doubt that is its real name. The thing is intelligent, possibly more so than most council members. It has been studying me just as I have been studying it. Her hands tightened on the device. Day 98. The Alpha has revealed something important. This world was built by a race called the Builders, extinct for thousands of years. They created Kalara Prime as the ultimate test of worthiness. Those who can not only survive but thrive here prove themselves worthy of the Builders' legacy. The log entries became more sporadic after that. Song had been preparing for something, gathering materials and weapons from his crashed ship. His final entry was dated day 103. Tomorrow I face the Alpha in direct combat. I know I cannot win, but perhaps I can learn enough to help the next human who finds themselves on this world. My academy roommate, Officer Cho Jae-hoon, always said that humans are the only species that look at impossible situations and ask how instead of why. If another human comes here, I hope they remember that lesson. The log ended there. Hana spent the rest of the day searching through Song's equipment and notes. He had been a good soldier and a smart man. His observations about the planet's ecosystem were detailed and accurate. But most importantly, he had found the Alpha's weakness. The creature was a perfect predator, designed by the Builders to test every possible survival skill. But it had one flaw. It expected its prey to fight like the species it had evolved to hunt. It did not understand human creativity, human stubbornness, or human willingness to fight dirty when survival was at stake. Song had not lived to use this knowledge, but he had left it behind for whoever came next. As Hana studied his notes by the light of her modified plasma cutter, she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She was not just fighting for her own survival anymore. She was fighting for every human who might be sent to this world in the future. On her 25th day, the Alpha found her. Hana was collecting water from a stream when she felt eyes watching her. She turned slowly and saw it standing at the edge of the forest like something out of nightmares, 12 feet tall with 4 arms that ended in claws that gleamed like metal. Its skin was dark gray and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Most terrifying of all were its eyes, intelligent, curious, and completely without mercy. For a long moment they stared at each other across the clearing. Then the Alpha did something that chilled her to the bone. It smiled, showing teeth like white daggers, and spoke in perfect galactic common. "Another human. How interesting. I have been looking forward to this." Its voice was deep and smooth, like a professor delivering a lecture. The casual way it spoke made everything worse somehow. This was not a mindless beast driven by hunger. This was an intelligent killer that enjoyed its work. "You survived longer than I expected," the Alpha continued, beginning to circle the clearing but never taking its eyes off her. "Song Ji-hoon lasted 103 days. I wonder if you will do better." Hana kept her plasma cutter ready but did not raise it yet. "You knew Captain Song." "I killed Captain Song," the Alpha replied without emotion. "Just as I killed the Korthak warrior before him, and the Zelkari champion before that. This world has seen many brave fools, but they all fall eventually. What makes you think I will be any different?" The Alpha's smile widened. "Because you are human. Your species interests me. You adapt differently than the others. You do not simply survive, you learn. You grow. You become something new." It stopped circling and faced her directly. "But adaptation has limits. Intelligence has limits. I am the ultimate limit, designed by minds that understood perfection. I'm what happens when evolution is guided by genius." Hana finally raised her weapon. "Then let me show you what happens when evolution is guided by stubbornness." The Alpha laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Soon, but not today. I want to study you first as I studied Song. I want to understand what makes humans think they can succeed where every other species has failed." It began backing away into the forest. "Run, human, hide, survive as long as you can. When you have shown me everything you are capable of, then we will see if your species truly deserves the reputation it has earned." As quickly as it had appeared, the Alpha vanished into the shadows between the trees. Hana stood alone in the clearing, her heart pounding and her hands shaking. She had just met the thing that would probably kill her, and it had spoken to her like they were old friends. But she had also learned something important. The Alpha wanted to study her before it killed her. That meant time, and time meant opportunity. Song had lasted 103 days because he had been running and hiding. Hana had no intention of running. She looked in the direction where the Alpha had disappeared and spoke to the empty forest. "You want to study me? Good. Study this. Humans do not know when to quit." The hunt had begun, but for the first time since arriving on Kalara Prime, Hana felt like she had a chance. Not to survive, but to win. The game between predator and prey had started, but the Alpha was about to learn that humans had their own ideas about which role they wanted to play. For 6 weeks, Hana played the deadliest game of hide-and-seek in galactic history. The Alpha was patient, more patient than any predator had a right to be. It would appear at the edge of her vision, study her for a few minutes, then vanish back into the shifting landscape of Kalara Prime. Sometimes she would find its tracks near her shelter in the morning, perfectly placed where she could not miss them. It was letting her know that it could reach her any time it chose. But instead of breaking her spirit, the Alpha's patience gave Hana something precious, time to learn. She began following it, using skills learned in military reconnaissance training. Hana tracked the Alpha across 3 different climate zones. She discovered that it had territories, places it returned to regularly. It had preferences, routes it liked to travel, and most importantly, it had habits that could be predicted. The Alpha was not just intelligent, it was methodical. From hidden observation points, Hana watched the creature hunt other prey. She saw it take down a pack of the 6-legged hunters that had first threatened her. moving with precision that was almost artistic. Each kill was clean and efficient. The Alpha never wasted motion, never used more force than necessary. It was perfect, and that perfection was going to be its downfall. On day 73, Hana found something that changed everything. Deep in the northern mountains, she discovered a structure that was clearly not natural. It was built into the side of a cliff, made from the same crystal material as the forest but shaped by intelligence. The entrance was covered by symbols that matched the ones she had found in Song's cave. Builder ruins. The structure was a library, filled with information stored in crystal matrices that responded to her touch. She could not read the builder language, but the crystals showed her images and concepts that transcended words. The builders had been researchers, scientists who studied life and evolution across the galaxy. They had created Kalara Prime as the ultimate laboratory, a place where they could test the limits of what living beings could achieve. The planet itself was designed to change and adapt, to present new challenges to any species that tried to survive there, and the Alpha was their masterpiece. The creature was not native to this world. It was an artificial creation, built from the genetic material of dozens of species and enhanced with technology that the builders had perfected over millennia. It was designed to be the perfect predator, capable of adapting to any prey, learning from any opponent, and evolving new strategies as needed. But the most important thing Hana learned was why humans had never been tested before. The builders had studied every known species in the galaxy before they vanished. They had detailed files on thousands of different races, analyzing their strengths and weaknesses, their survival strategies and evolutionary advantages. But there was no file for humanity. Humans had appeared on the galactic stage long after the builders were gone. The Alpha had been programmed to understand and counter every known form of intelligence, but it had no data on human psychology, human tactics, or human stubbornness. For the first time in its existence, the Alpha was facing something truly unknown. Hana spent weeks studying the builder records, learning everything she could about how the Alpha thought and fought. The creature was programmed with the combat knowledge of every warrior species the builders had encountered. It could think like a Korthak berserker, plan like a Zelkari strategist, or endure like a Vorthak soldier, but it could not think like a human. The crystals showed her something else. The Alpha could be defeated. The builders had included override protocols in their creation, ways to shut it down if it ever became too dangerous to control. But those protocols required something the Alpha had never encountered before. They required the creature to acknowledge that its opponent was truly its equal. The Alpha was programmed to recognize worthiness, to identify when a being had proven itself capable of inheriting the builder's legacy. But it had been created to test known species with predictable strategies. Humans were the unknown variable that the builders had never planned for. On day 87, Hana made her decision. She stopped running. Instead of hiding from the Alpha, she began seeking it out. When it appeared to study her, she studied it right back, making notes about its movements, its reactions, its body language. When it left tracks for her to find, she left her own tracks in response, showing that she was not afraid. The change in their relationship was immediate. The Alpha began appearing more often, staying visible longer. It started testing her, creating dangerous situations to see how she would respond. It would collapse a cliff face while she was climbing, or drive predatory animals toward her shelter, or poison water sources she had been using. Each test was designed to reveal something about her capabilities, her problem-solving skills, her ability to adapt under pressure, and each time Hana surprised it with solutions that did not match any of its programmed expectations. When it collapsed the cliff, she did not try to find another route. She used her plasma cutter to carve handholds directly into the rock face, creating a path that had not existed before. When it sent pack hunters after her, she did not fight them or run from them. She tamed one of the injured animals and turned it into an ally, using its pack instincts to drive the others away. When it poisoned the water, she did not search for a new source. She built a distillation system from scrapped parts of her survival pod, turning the poisoned water clean through human engineering. Each solution was uniquely human, creative, stubborn, and completely outside the Alpha's programmed responses. By day 90, Their relationship had evolved into something neither of them had expected. They were no longer predator and prey. They had become opponents who respected each other. Two intelligent beings testing their limits against the ultimate challenge. The Alpha began speaking to her during their encounters. "You interest me, human," it said one evening as they faced each other across a valley floor. "Your solutions are inefficient, crude, yet they work." "Efficient is overrated," Hana replied, not lowering her weapon. "Sometimes crude is exactly what you need." "The builders valued elegance," the Alpha continued. "Perfect solutions to perfect problems. Your methods would have disgusted them." "Good thing they are not here to complain." The Alpha made a sound that might have been laughter. "Indeed, tell me, human, do you truly believe you can defeat me?" Hana considered the question seriously. She had learned everything she could about the creature, studied its weaknesses, planned strategies that exploited its programming limitations, but she was still just one human with improvised weapons facing a genetically perfect killer. "I believe I can try," she said finally. "And for humans, sometimes trying is enough. Trying is not surviving." "No," Hana agreed. "But trying is how we learn to win." The Alpha tilted its massive head, studying her with those intelligent eyes. "Tomorrow," it said after a long moment. "Tomorrow we end this game. I have learned all I can from observing you. Now I will test what you have learned from observing me." It began to walk away, then paused and looked back at her. "You have surprised me, human. That has not happened in 3,000 years. Whatever happens tomorrow, know that you have already achieved something remarkable." As the Alpha disappeared into the darkness, Hana felt a strange mixture of fear and anticipation. Tomorrow would bring the final test, the moment that would determine whether she lived or died on this hostile world. But tonight, for the first time since arriving on Kalara Prime, she felt ready. She had learned the Alpha's secrets, understood its nature, and found its weaknesses. More importantly, she had learned something about herself. She was not the same person who had been sentenced to exile in the council chambers. She had become something new, something that had never existed before. A human who had been tested by the ultimate challenge and emerged stronger for it. Tomorrow would bring the hunt's end, one way or another. But tonight she was exactly where she belonged. Day 127 dawned red and violent on Kalara Prime. Hana had spent the night preparing for what she knew would be her final battle. She had modified every piece of equipment she possessed, turning survival gear into weapons and tools into traps. Her plasma cutter was now part of a larger device that could channel energy in ways its designers never intended. Her shelter generator had been rewired to create electromagnetic pulses. Even her water purifier had been converted into a chemical weapon dispenser. She was as ready as any human could be to face a genetically perfect killing machine. The Alpha found her at sunrise, stepping out of the crystal forest like death itself, taking physical form. In the red morning light, its gray skin seemed to glow with its own inner fire. Its forearms moved with fluid grace, each one ending in claws that could cut through metal. "You have chosen your battleground well," the Alpha said, looking around the clearing where Hana waited. "Open space, multiple escape routes, high ground nearby. Very tactical." "I learned from the best teacher," Hana replied, checking her improvised weapons one final time. "Flattery will not save you." "It was not meant to. It was just the truth." The Alpha smiled its terrible smile. "You have changed since we first met, human. You move differently. Think differently. You are not the same being who crashed onto this world." "Neither are you," Hana observed. "When was the last time you talked this much to your prey before killing them?" The smile faded. "Never." "Then we have both learned something." They circled each other in the clearing, neither making the first move. Hana knew that whoever attacked first would be at a disadvantage. The Alpha was built for overwhelming speed and power, but it was also programmed to analyze and counter its opponent's tactics. She needed to make it react to her, not the other way around. "Tell me," she said as they continued their deadly dance, "what happens after you kill me? Do you wait for the next exile? Do you go back to hunting the local wildlife? What does a perfect predator do when there is nothing left worth hunting?" The Alpha's eyes narrowed. "I serve my purpose. I test those who would claim the Builder's legacy. But I am the first human you have tested. Before me, you knew what to expect from every species. Kortaks fight with rage. Zelkari use cunning. Vorthax rely on brute strength. You could predict them all?" "Yes." "So what have you learned about humans?" The Alpha stopped circling and stood perfectly still. That you do not fit the patterns. You adapt in ways that make no logical sense. You survive through methods that should not work. And that bothers you. Yes. Hana smiled. Good. Because you are about to see just how illogical humans can be. She threw herself sideways just as the Alpha lunged, its forearms reaching for where she had been standing. But instead of running, she rolled toward the creature, coming up inside its guard with her modified plasma cutter blazing. The energy beam caught the Alpha across its left shoulder, burning through skin that was supposed to be nearly invulnerable. The creature roared in pain and surprise, spinning to track her movement. But Hana was already gone, diving behind a cluster of crystal formations that she had carefully prepared the night before. When the Alpha's claws struck the crystals, they exploded in a shower of sharp fragments, each one coated with chemicals from her modified water purifier. The Alpha stumbled backward, temporarily blinded by the explosion and the chemical irritants. Hana used the moment to activate her next trap, sending an electromagnetic pulse through the ground using her rewired shelter generator. The pulse disrupted the Alpha's enhanced nervous system, causing its muscles to spasm uncontrollably. For 3 precious seconds, the perfect predator was helpless. Hana did not waste those seconds. She rolled out of cover with a weapon she had built from scrap metal and power cells, firing concentrated bursts of energy that sent the Alpha staggering backward toward the edge of the clearing. But the creature adapted faster than she had hoped. By the 4th shot, the Alpha had learned to predict her firing pattern. It twisted away from the energy beam and charged straight at her, moving faster than anything that large had any right to move. Hana tried to dodge, but one of the creature's secondary arms caught her across the ribs, lifting her off the ground and sending her flying into a crystal formation. She felt bones crack as she hit the sharp surface, and her left arm went numb from the impact. The Alpha was on her before she could recover, pinning her against the crystals with 2 of its arms while the other 2 drew back for the killing blow. Ingenious, it said, breathing heavily from their fight. You used my own perfection against me, exploiting the fact that I analyze and counter attacks. But analysis requires time, and you gave me that time. Did I? Hana gasped, blood running down her face from cuts left by the crystal fragments. The Alpha paused, its killing blow frozen in mid-strike. Something in her tone made it hesitate. You spent months studying me, Hana continued, her voice growing stronger despite her injuries, learning my patterns, predicting my behavior, analyzing my strategies. But did you ever consider that I was studying you too? She smiled through the blood and pain. You think in patterns. You solve problems by applying known solutions to familiar scenarios. Even when you adapt, you do it logically, systematically, predictably. The Alpha's grip tightened on her shoulders. What is your point? My point is that everything I just did was designed to make you think you were winning. The traps, the ambush tactics, the improvised weapons, all of it was meant to reinforce your analysis that humans are creative, but ultimately inferior. Hana's right hand, the one the Alpha could not see, closed around a device she had hidden among the crystal fragments. But humans have one advantage that your builders never programmed you to counter. We cheat. The device in her hand was the most dangerous thing she had built. A fusion bomb made from her survival pod's power core, stabilized with chemicals she had extracted from the local ecosystem, and triggered by a simple pressure switch. She had not intended to use it as a suicide weapon. She had intended to use it as bait. The Alpha realized what she was holding a split second before she activated it. But a split second was not enough time for a creature programmed to preserve itself above all else. It threw itself backward, releasing its grip on her and putting as much distance as possible between itself and the bomb in her hand, exactly as she had known it would. The fusion device was not set to explode. It was set to emit a burst of radiation that would temporarily overload the Alpha's enhanced senses, leaving it blind and disoriented for several minutes. As the creature staggered backward, clawing at its eyes and roaring in pain, Hana retrieved the real weapon she had prepared. It was crude, built from salvaged metal and powered by the last of her energy cells. It looked like nothing more than a sharpened rod with some electronic components attached. But it was designed for one specific purpose: to penetrate the Alpha's armored skin and deliver a precise, electromagnetic pulse directly to its nervous system. The creature was still trying to clear its vision when Hana drove the improvised weapon deep into its chest, just below the heart. The Alpha froze as electricity coursed through its enhanced nervous system, disrupting the delicate balance of genetic modifications that gave it its incredible abilities. For a moment it was just another large predator, confused and in pain. But a moment was all Hana needed. She pulled her plasma cutter from where it had fallen and set it to maximum power, burning through the creature's chest until she found what she was looking for. The central control node that coordinated all of its enhancements. The Alpha looked down at her with eyes that were suddenly very different. The predatory intelligence was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Respect? Impossible, it whispered. Improbable, Hana corrected. Humans specialize in improbable. The creature nodded slowly, its massive body already beginning to shut down as its control systems failed. You have proven your worthiness, human. The Builder's legacy is yours to claim. It reached into a pouch on its chest and pulled out a crystal data storage device, pressing it into her uninjured hand. The location of their archive, the Alpha explained, its voice growing weaker. Everything they learned, everything they built, everything they knew about life and evolution and the cosmos. It belongs to your species now. Hana stared at the crystal, hardly believing what had just happened. Why are you giving this to me? I thought you were supposed to kill anyone who challenged you. I was programmed to test worthiness, the Alpha replied. You have passed that test in ways the Builders never imagined possible. Your species brings something new to the galaxy, something that has been missing since the Builders vanished. What? The Alpha's eyes began to dim, but its terrible smile returned one final time. Hope. As the perfect predator died, Hana collapsed beside it, exhausted and bleeding, but alive. She had done something that 7 previous exiles had failed to do. She had not just survived Kalara Prime, she had conquered it. 8 months, 14 days, and 6 hours after her exile began, Commander Lee Hana activated the emergency beacon that would change the galaxy forever. The signal burst through space faster than light, carrying a message that no one had expected to receive. Every monitoring station in Council space picked up the transmission at the same moment, and for several minutes. Communication networks across dozens of worlds went silent as beings tried to process what they were hearing. This is Commander Lee Hana of the Terran Defense Force, broadcasting from Kalara Prime. I am alive, I am well, and I am ready for pickup. On the Council homeworld, Speaker Kale Nix stared at the message display with all 4 of his arms trembling. Around him, delegates from 12 species sat in stunned silence. The Vorthek representative was the first to speak, its voice grinding like broken stone. Impossible. The signal must be a malfunction, some kind of automated distress call. But the message continued, and it was clearly live, clearly intelligent, clearly coming from someone who was very much alive. I have spent the last 8 months learning about your Deathworld. Hana's voice continued across the void. It has been educational. I look forward to sharing what I have discovered with the Council and the galaxy at large. Speaker Kale Nix activated his personal communicator with shaking hands. Send a ship immediately. Full diplomatic escort. I want confirmation that this transmission is real. The rescue mission launched within hours, led by Captain Kim Do-hyun and carrying the best medical team the human delegation could assemble. The journey to Kalara Prime took 3 days, and every hour brought new questions about what they would find there. When they arrived in orbit around the Red World, their sensors immediately detected something that made the entire crew stare at their displays in disbelief. There were structures on the planet's surface that had not been there before. Large, clearly artificial constructions that showed up as bright spots against the crimson landscape. And at the center of the largest structure, a beacon was broadcasting steadily, guiding them to a landing site. Captain Kim led the landing party personally, along with Dr. Yoon Haisu, the expedition's chief medical officer, and Lieutenant Park Suman, who had insisted on coming despite regulations. They landed near what appeared to be a small city built from crystal and metal, with gardens growing in neat rows and what looked suspiciously like defensive walls. Hana met them at the landing pad. She looked different than when they had last seen her. Thinner, more scarred, with her left arm in a makeshift sling and a jagged line across her face that ran from her temple to her jaw. But her eyes were bright and alert, and she was smiling. More importantly, she was not alone. Behind her stood 3 creatures that made the rescue team reach for their weapons before stopping in confusion. The beings looked like smaller versions of the legendary apex predators that were supposed to kill everything on this world, but they moved with calm intelligence and seemed to be following Hana's lead. "Welcome to New Haven," Hana said casually, as if greeting visitors was something she did every day. "Sorry about the mess. We are still building." Lieutenant Park was the first to find her voice. "Hana, what happened to you? How are you still alive? And what are those things?" "Those things are my friends," Hana replied, gesturing to the creatures behind her. "Meet Kaon, Varix, and Talus. They are descendants of the original pack hunters, evolved over thousands of years to be more intelligent and less hostile. Turns out this world breeds cooperation as well as competition, if you know how to encourage it." Dr. Yoon stepped forward with her medical scanner. "Commander, you need immediate treatment. Our sensors show multiple healed fractures, tissue damage, and signs of toxin exposure." "I have been treated," Hana said, showing them her properly set arm and the healing cuts on her face. "Kilaran plants make excellent medicine once you learn which ones will not kill you. Though I admit I could use some real food that does not taste like metal and dirt." Captain Kim was staring at the structures around them. "Hana, did you build all this?" "We built it," she corrected. "Humans are not the only species that can learn to cooperate. It just took some time to convince the locals that working together was more profitable than eating each other." She gestured for them to follow her toward the largest building. "Come on. I have some things to show you that are going to make the council very unhappy." Inside the crystal structure, Hana had created something that looked like a cross between a military command center and a research laboratory. Data displays showed detailed maps of the planet, biological analysis of local species, and technical readouts that made no sense to the rescue team. But what drew their attention was the massive skull mounted on the central wall. It was clearly from a predator, something large and dangerous with teeth like daggers and eye sockets that could have held a human fist. But it was the intelligence visible in the bone structure that made everyone stare. "That," Hana said proudly, "is the Alpha. The apex predator that killed every previous exile sent to this world. We had a disagreement about who belonged at the top of the food chain." She walked over to a storage container and pulled out a crystal data device that seemed to glow with its own inner light. "And this is why the council is going to regret ever sending me. Here." Lieutenant Park took the device with shaking hands. "What is it?" "The complete scientific archive of the race that built this world. Technology that makes our best ships look like stone tools. Medical knowledge that could extend lifespans by centuries. Terraforming techniques that could turn dead worlds into gardens in a matter of years." Captain Kim sat down heavily in the nearest chair. "Hana, do you understand what you are saying? This could change everything." "It will change everything," Hana corrected. "The council tried to eliminate a problem by sending me here to die. Instead, they gave humanity access to the greatest scientific treasure in galactic history." Dr. Yoon was still scanning Hana with her medical equipment, and the readings were making her frown. "Commander, these genetic markers are unusual. Have you been exposed to some kind of enhancement treatment?" Hana's smile grew wider. "The planet changes you if you stay here long enough. Makes you stronger, faster, more resistant to damage. The Alpha was not the only thing the builders created. The entire world is designed to evolve its inhabitants into something better." She gestured to her alien companions, who had been quietly observing the conversation. "These three were barely intelligent pack hunters when I first arrived. Now they can speak, plan, build tools, and solve complex problems. In another generation or two, they will be ready to join galactic civilization as equals." "And humans?" Lieutenant Park asked quietly. "Humans adapt faster than anything the builders ever tested," Hana replied. "I am stronger now than when I arrived. My reflexes are faster. My immune system can handle toxins that would kill baseline humans. And my children, if I have any, will be even more enhanced." Captain Kim stood up slowly. "We need to report this to Earth Command immediately. The implications are staggering." "The implications are exactly what I intended," Hana said. "The council wanted to know what happens when you send a human to certain death. Now they know. The human comes back stronger, and death becomes a little less certain for everyone." 3 days later, the rescue ship departed Kalara Prime with the most important cargo in human history, but they left behind something almost as valuable. A thriving colony that would serve as humanity's first foothold in a galaxy that had underestimated them. In the council chambers, Speaker Cale Nix faced the assembled delegates with news that would reshape galactic politics forever. The human delegate, Captain Kim Do-hyun, stood before them with documents that proved everything they had thought they knew about Deathworlds was wrong. Commander Hana has returned from exile, Kim announced to the silent chamber. She brings with her proof that humans do not simply survive impossible challenges. We transform them into opportunities. The data crystal containing the Builder's Archive sat on the central podium, glowing softly in the chamber's artificial light. Around it were holographic displays showing the colony on Kalara Prime, the evolved native species working alongside humans, and technical readouts that made even the most advanced council races look primitive by comparison. The vote to exile Commander Hana was unanimous, Kim continued. I trust the vote to reinstate full rights to the human colonies will be equally decisive. It was. But Hana had already moved beyond such concerns. On Kalara Prime, she stood on the walls of New Haven and watched ships arriving from across human space. Scientists, engineers, colonists, and soldiers, all coming to learn from the world that had tried to kill her and instead made her stronger. Lieutenant Park joined her on the wall, carrying a message from Earth Command. They want to know if you will accept a promotion, Park said. Admiral Hana has a nice ring to it. Tell them I am busy, Hana replied, watching as her alien friends taught human children how to communicate with the planet's ecosystem. I have worlds to explore and impossible things to make possible. She touched the scar on her face, a permanent reminder of what she had endured and overcome. Besides, she added with the smile that had become legend across the galaxy, someone needs to find the other Deathworlds and show them what humans can do when we really try. In the years that followed, the story of Commander Lee Hana would spread to every inhabited world in the galaxy. It became a cautionary tale for those who underestimated humanity, a source of inspiration for those who faced impossible odds, and a promise to the universe itself. No matter how hostile the environment, no matter how deadly the challenge, no matter how certain the death that waited in the darkness between stars, there would always be humans willing to face it, and they would return bearing scars, smiles, and proof that nothing in the universe was truly impossible. They would just bring their own definition of possible with them.